Today we're going to be learning how to make the Calliope block for which the quilt was named. These Calliopes were little carts with steam-powered organs on them that played the kind of festive carnival music that you would hear at circuses, carnivals, outside public events before we had electricity. To start with, I've created a pattern for the Calliope itself. It's going to finish at 12.5 inches across and 9.5 inches high. So actually the top of the Calliope is right here, and it's bigger than a piece of paper, so we're going to place it on a fold and cut that out. So if you have a patterned fabric, you want to make sure that you're laying it out so that nothing will be upside down and everything will be on the top. Also, we have the wagon wheels, and we have the outer wheel and the inner wheel, and you can cut these out and trace those. I also gave you the diameter if you have circle cutters that you want to use. I've already cut mine out here, so we're ready to go. Notice on this pattern for the actual Calliope itself, I have in the middle this squiggly line that I've indicated as a cutting line, but I've not cut that out yet. First, we're going to cut out the outer edge of it, and then I will cut the inside out of the pattern, and we'll mark it and cut that together. Also, we'll want to back our fabrics with some easy steam or some type of fusible web, whatever you prefer. I like the easy steam. Let me put the patterns aside a second and also show you the fabric selection. I wanted to use something very ornate looking and something that was colorful and festive, and for the wagon, as they usually were red and gold, but you can do anything you want and make it however you like to match your quilt and your fabrics. So this was just a piece of fat quarter that I had that was plenty big enough to do it. And after I cut out the actual pattern, I also cut out some of these swirls to embellish the top of the wagon with. So you can see that. We'll get to that later. For the gold lame, there are a number of products that you can use. I have 3 different samples here. One is the speckled glittered one. One is just a solid gold lame, and one is a lighter lame, not so shiny. This one is actually the edge, the selvage edge of this glitter one here. And I cut it off, and I used this lighter one for the organ pipes. I did not use this one at all, but you can get it if you like it. And this is the one I chose for the outside frame of the Calliope and for the wheel spokes of the wheels. So that's gold lame. And then for the wheel spokes of the wheels, I had a lot going on, so I was just looking for something a little calmer that would kind of blend in, and I used the back side of this because I didn't have any other brown. But I found some scraps of cork, fabric backed cork, and so that I thought would work really nice and give it kind of a wood look if you want it wooden wagon wheels, if you want it to use something like that, but try whatever you like. Next, I'm going to back my fabric with the fusible web. If you've never done that before, I just cut a large piece of the Easy Steam 2. It's basically, let me see if I can show you. Find the edge here. Here we go. Here's the edge of it. It's basically a clear adhesive. Let me get this in front of the camera. There we go. it's a clear adhesive, which I'm going to curl up. That's what it is, and that's the thin part that goes between, it actually sticks on the back of your fabric. It's not very thick, it's almost translucent, and there's two paper backing, and it's kind of sticky enough to stick to my finger here, and it will stick lightly to the fabric. So what I'm going to do, there's two sides. There's a gridded side and a plain paper side, and I'm going to peel away the plain paper side. Let me see. And I'm going to make sure, I was messing with this corner so it's not sticking, but I'm going to make sure I only peel away the paper and the Easy Steam backing is still adhered to the grid paper. Because it's such a large piece, I'm also going to just pull away this entire edge and get it started and then pull it away little by little. Because once it sticks on itself, it's pretty much useless. So you want to make sure it doesn't wrinkle. Because I pulled it apart to show you the corner. It looks like it's a little wrinkled. But anyway, I'm going to fold this here. I'm going to show you how I'm going to just fold the back like this, press it. This does look like it has a couple wrinkles in it. I will try to get that out as I lay it down. But that's just because I was lifting it up to show you. Usually it does not wrinkle like that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to lay the sticky part down along. I'm not going to get the selvage. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a light press just to keep it in place. And then I'm going to lift under and pull away. Oops, I need a second hand. I need a third hand here. I'm going to try to pull away. You can see, I can pull away this from underneath and then continue to lay it down flat and press it. I went ahead and cut a small piece of Easy Steam to back the fabric that I'm going to use for my wagon wheel base, and I just cut what I needed, actually a little extra. But notice I'm going to go ahead and peel this paper, the plain paper backing off, and I'm going to stick it right to the front side of the fabric this time because I don't want this part to show. I just want the brown part on the back to show. Again, make sure that the sticky part is staying on the grid side of the paper. I'm going to go ahead and peel this away. I'm going to place this up in the corner, and I'm going to continue to make sure this lays nice and flat as I peel away the backing. And I'm going to give it a light press with my iron. You can put backing on the gold lame, but it scorches very easily. So you just want to make sure that you try to fold it in a way that it doesn't get wrinkled, which I did not do. But also, if I iron it, I just do it very, very lightly, just enough to be able to lay my pattern pieces on it and cut them out. And that's all I'm going to do with that. Okay, after we've cut our wagon wheel spokes out of the gold lame, we might want to cut out the inside so that we can get it nice and sharp and crisp. One thing that I have is this little tiny 15mm Fiskars rotary cutter, and I don't use it with a ruler or anything. I just am using it almost like an X-Acto blade, and I'm going to let me see if I can get some better light. Okay, let's see if that helps. Okay, I'm just gonna put this right on the line, and I'm going to cut through all layers and give it a little turn. You can see it's actually cut through that part already, and turn the corner here. Make some little cuts It's a new blade, so it's very sharp and it can easily cut through all of these layers. And just come down this last. And this will come right out. And there we go. We've got 2 spokes, and that's how I cut them out. But you can also use small scissors with a sharp tip and do it that way, so whatever's quicker. Okay, so next I have selected my fabric, and this is actually, I folded it in half and figured out where I wanted to cut it. I placed my pattern piece on the fold of the fabric, nice and even and straight, right up next to it there. And I cut these 3 sides for the edges. And then what's going to happen is it's going to unfold and be the full size of the cart. I also cut gold lame, as that's going to be the frame of the cart. And so I have 2 rectangles here, and I went ahead and prepared the wheels also ready to applique on when we've got all our pieces together. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this line out and trace the inside of the cut of the. So here I've cut out the center opening for where the organ pipes will be and the musical background fabric. And I'm going to go ahead and you can just cut this, or you can trace it with a chalk pen or a friction pen, any kind of fabric marking pen that you want. My fabric's kind of dark, so I think I'm going to go with the chalk pen. Now, I didn't say in the beginning, but obviously we need a background piece of fabric for this. It'll finish at 18.5 inches, but 18.5 inches square, so both sides. But I cut it like 20 or 21 inches square to start with, because when you do a lot of applique work, it'll shrink up a little bit, and so then it will allow us to trim it. Also creased the center in both directions so that we can find the center as we begin to layer our items on there. So I just used a low volume neutral. The other thing I cut out is a piece of fabric that has a music print on it. There's many different things you could put, but because the Calliope was musical, I thought it would be a nice background inside the actual cart. And so I cut that at 6 inches, or rather 9 inches wide by 8 inches high. And so that'll be just enough to go behind the opening in our Calliope. Here's the Calliope that I cut out, and you can see I just folded it in half and cut that swirl line out, and then opened it up, and I had a square. And I did the same thing. I cut the same rectangular size for the edging, gold lame, and I folded that in half and just did some squiggle lines with the scissor without even drawing it. Opened it up and placed it around the edge. So this is backed and this is backed. This is not backed, but it will stick to the underside of this once we peel it off and get that in place. So you can see as we're layering it, here's the wheels, the rear wheel and the front wheel. We'll place those a little bit later, but just so you can see it takes shape. I am going to save what I cut out to cut some of the embellishments out of, since it's already backed, and I don't want to waste that. I also cut some strips of lame for the organ pipes, and I cut 6 of them, and they're 1/2 inch. They're 1/2 inch wide, and you can just arrange them however you want. I think I did some fun, oops, let me try to hold the camera there, just some fun pipes, but I'm just gonna lay them how I want them arranged, and then I'll peel and stick them. I will tuck all of these, I'll cut them about 1/2 inch below the edge of the red fabric and tuck them underneath and stick them in place, and they'll get appliqued around. But that is how it is going to be layered. I'm going to cut some of these swirled embellishments out, and they will go on the top and corners to embellish the Calliope. So there you go. Here's the filigree curly parts of the fabric to embellish the top. They're in place and everything's layered and secure with the Easy Steam, except for the wheels. I have not peeled the backing off them yet because I'm going to take those off while I do all of the other applique work. So first I'm just going to applique. I use black thread just to make everything really pop and stand out, but feel free to use whatever color you want. But I'm just going to cover every raw edge here, all up and down these organ pipes and around all the filigree. I'm going to just secure everything with a straight stitch raw edge applique with a medium weight black thread. So here is all the applique work. Everything is done up to the applique work, and we have to now embellish, do the scroll work on top here. And I'm going to draw it in with a friction pen so I know where I'm going to be stitching. I'm also going to press, use some stabilizer on the back of this, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Okay, so I also wanted to show you the back after I completed the applique work. This is what the back looks like. Notice that I did applique all the filigree on top so that it will not lift up when we do our embellishing with thread sketching. Also the wheels, the inner wheels, the organ pipes, everything is nice and secure. I did a double row of stitching just to make sure it was held down well and in place. So that's what the back looks like. We will flip it over, and we've got our wagon here. We're ready to do the embellishments. Here's the one in the quilt, and notice all of the thread sketching that I did all in here, and I added some scroll work. So I'm going to go ahead and also did a little bit, something a little bit different in the front, like a little step up into the wagon, and the back was a little bit bigger, so just to differentiate that as well. So we're going to go ahead and draw these in with a friction pen. Find it. Okay. Okay, so this is a friction pen that I have. You can get them in different colors. They can look like that, but this is one that I just got. Bumbletees has them usually. I happen to be at Walmart and just grabbed these out of the aisle there. But I'm going to, let me see if we can focus on one of the corners here. And I'm going to go ahead and add some scroll work. We don't need a lot of lines. We're going to do more with the sewing machine than we are actually going to. So that's sort of where we're going to start with, and I'm going to finish the other two the same way. Okay, so I also said that I was going to put some stabilizer behind this, but I actually changed my mind and decided just to use an embroidery hoop. So I'm just going to use a wire clip loop. These just clip right inside the ring. Oops, can do it with one hand. Here we go. And they just clip inside. So I'm going to take this wire out. We're going to slip this purple thing under the fabric here. Let me see where we have it. We want this to be centered right over it where we're going to stitch. I'm going to make sure I have at least an inch around all sides, an inch from where I'm going to be stitching, otherwise there won't be enough room to really move it. If I need to put this down and resituate this, I can, but I try to get the one. There we go. It's a little bit thick for this right here. Okay, so that is in the hoop. It's important to keep it very nice and tight so it doesn't wrinkle up as we are going to be doing our thread sketching. Now I'm at the machine, getting the machine ready to do some free motion quilting. So the first thing that we want to do is we want the feed dogs here as I move the there we go. As I move the needle up and down, we don't want these feed dogs to be sticking up above the plate here. We don't want them to move our fabric. We want to be moving it freely as we need to make the design. So on my machine, I'm going over here and I'm going to drop, oops, turn this knob. I'm going to drop that, switch that knob over, and that will drop my feed dogs. They will not come up now, and they won't make any contact with the fabric. The other thing that I want to do is use this foot here. It's an old darning foot. It has a little circle. Sometimes they have a half circle, but it's also, if you notice, it's on a bit of a spring. If I push it like this, you'll see it bounces back. It's got a little spring motion in there, and that is so when you're actually sewing with it, it'll when the needle comes down, this will make contact with the fabric to hold it so you can make a nice tight stitch, and then it comes up and you can move your fabric to the next stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my machine here. There we go. And let's get the thread up between the layers. Oops, I did not pull that all the way. There we go. Okay, so now I've got that machine, the right foot on, and I have my feed dogs dropped, and I have my area that I want to embroider, or free motion quilt rather. You can embroider this way as well, but I'm going to just do some free motion stitching. But I have that in a hoop. I've got my feed dogs dropped with my switch here. Your switch might be on the back of your machine right back here. It might be on top. You'll just have to check your manual to see. And I have my the right foot on, the darning foot or free motion foot. So the next thing I'm going to do is slip this, lift up my foot and go ahead and slip this into the hoop area where I'm going to start stitching. Okay, so I'm going to start on the side here, and as you can see, we don't really have to worry about setting our machine to a certain stitch length. It's just a straight stitch, and it doesn't really matter because I'm controlling the length by how quickly or slowly I'm moving and sliding the fabric around under the needle. It takes a little bit of practice to get an even stitch length as you're doing this. And so you can practice on a scrap first to kind of get the feel of it. But again, all I'm doing is straight stitching. I've dropped my feed dogs and I've put in my darning foot, which is on a little spring, and it's a free motion or darning foot. And as the needle pokes down into the fabric, that little ring comes down and presses on the fabric for a split second, so that when it holds the fabric tight so the needle can come back up without pulling the thread, and so it can complete the stitch. And then it springs back up so you can slide the fabric just a little bit so it makes the next stitch. Also, I put some lines in with the friction pen. I will iron them away if there's any still showing. I decided to vary a little bit from what I did. They're really just a guide. So anyway, and I do knot the thread. You can leave a long thread tail and knot it from the other side, or just back to tack a little bit like you normally do. But anyway, here I'm gonna go, and you kind of go back over on itself, and you get it nice and thick. And I can go faster or slower if I want. You can also use some gold thread if you want it to embellish it that way, or some colors. When you go over it a few times, it actually really covers up any inconsistencies and mistakes, and it smooths everything out and makes everything look rather intentional. So anyway, that is the one bottom scroll. I'm going to come back up here and work a little bit on this middle scroll that I started. You can see I didn't go quite as far out as I had drawn it. Just thought it would look a little better, not so far out. And just keep going back over it, and I'm trying to keep it nice and straight. And I'm going to come back up, and I'm done here. Okay, I'm going to start a new section here, and again I'm just going to back tack a little bit and move this thread tail out of our way, so stitch it down. But I don't have a line drawn here, but I just thought I would like to come and just do some embellishing right in here. Added some extra ones in there. I'm gonna go ahead and end that one, and I'm gonna jump. Let me just snip that thread. There we go. Let me see if I can get some more light on this. Okay, we're gonna see if that's a little better. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my needle right here, and I'm gonna back tack a little bit, and hopefully you can see it's just, you don't have to be very exact. Over it a couple of times. It really is quite relaxing and fun once you kind of get the hang of it. And then I'm going to move that little red tail and do this last little curlicue. And I'm probably not going to go out as far. I got carried away with my marking pen, I think. Back tack and end that one, and I'll get rid of this thread, and there you go. That's how we do the embellishing work on free motion quilting, or free motion embroidery, whatever you want to call it, or thread sketching. Any of those work, but it really is fun, and it doesn't have to be exact. Just relax and enjoy doing it.